פני שבת מקבלה.
שמור ושחור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. לך
דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת מקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת מקבלה.
שמור את לקראת כלה, לכו ונלכה, כי אם מקור אברכה מראש מקדם, סוף מעשה ומחשבה תחילה. לך
דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת מקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת מקבלה.
Verse 5, wake up. Literally, wake up. התעוררי, 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 כי בא אורך, קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כאור אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך
דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת מקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת מקבלה.
לא תהושי ולא תקלמי, מה תשתוכחי ומה תהמי, באח יחסו עניי עמי, ונבנתה עירה אל תהילה. לך
דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת מקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת מקבלה.
בואי ושלום עטרת בלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה. תוך אמוני עם סלע, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. We have welcome Shabbat, and while you're standing, we'll take a moment to welcome each other, to say Shabbat Shalom to each other. You can say it out loud, you can go around. It takes 2 minutes, but it's a great opportunity to acknowledge each other's presence.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Disconnect them.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Oh, sorry. You look beautiful.
What? La 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ay, ay, la, 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 ay, ay, la, 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 ay, ay, la, la, ay, lecha dodi. Ay, la, 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 likrat kala. Ay, penei Shabbat, penei Shabbat, penei Shabbat nekavela. We will now turn our Sidurim to page 140 for Psalm 92 before moving into Arbit Shel Shabbat, into the service of Ma'arif. We dedicate to Shabbat one more song, Mizmor Shir Leyom HaShabbat. Mizmor, Mizmor Shir, 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 Shir Leyom HaShabbat. Mizmor Shir, Shir Leyom HaShabbat. Mizmor Shir, Shir Leyom HaShabbat. Mizmor, Mizmor Shir, Shir Leyom HaShabbat. Mizmor, Mizmor Shir, Shir Leyom HaShabbat. Mizmor Shir, Shir Leyom HaShabbat. Mizmor Shir, Shir Leyom HaShabbat. Page 144, Chetzi Kaddish. יתגדל בהתקדש מרבס, אמן, בעלמא דברה חירותי, בהמליך מלכותי, בחייכם וביומכם, ובחיי לכל בית ישראל. בגלה, בגלה, ובזמן קריב, אמרו, אמן. שמרה ומבורך, לעולם רול ועלמיה, יתברך, יתברך וישתבח, יתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר, ויתעלה, ויתהלל, שמת הקודשה, להילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה. תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירם רעה, ואמרו, Amen. We'll now turn our Sidurim to page 146. For Baruch, the blessing that opens the gate toward the Shema, the blessing that invites us to take a moment before we acknowledge the unity of God and recognize our community. You cannot say Baruch if you don't have a minyan. So we take a moment and we acknowledge our minyan. We acknowledge our foundations. We acknowledge those that help us and share with us on building our tent. Page 146, Baruch. Yai, yada lai 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 lai, yada lai 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 lai, yada lai lai lai, ay yada lai lai lai, yada lai lai lai, yada lai lai lai, yada lai lai lai. Baruch et Adonai, yada lai 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 lai, amevorach. Hay la lai lai Baruch Adonai, amevorach leolam ba'ed. Ay yadai dai ay yadai, yadai dai 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 dai, You maybe see that. Ya da la 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 la. Ya da la 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 la. Ya da la la la. Page 148. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, Lord of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night. We are at the middle of page 148 in Hebrew. ומהביא לילה ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות, שמו חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם בהר, ברוך אתה אדוני, המריב ערבים. It's you, and the High Holiest. I couldn't come back to Shabbat. This is not the High Holiest, it's your presence. It makes this space so holy that you are here, that I can't not help it but thinking about the High Holiest. We need to have you more often in Shabbat. So when you are standing next to me, I can do the melody of Shabbat without getting mixed with one of the High Holiest. Page 150, אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך, אהבת תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. Everlasting love you offer your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. As we are getting closer to the Shema, I invite you to take a moment and close your eyes. Our tradition teaches us that one cannot say the Shema while not feeling surrounded by an everlasting love. We think about mitzvot, we think about the changing of the seasons, we think about day and night. But love looks differently for each of us. So while your eyes are closed, I invite you to think about what that everlasting love looks like to you. It might be a memory, a smell, an aroma, a landscape, somebody's face. As we try to picture that love, we let that love, that image, become a light that surrounds us as a prayer shawl, as a talit. While embraced by that talit, I invite you to think about all the things that you are carrying from your week, all the things that not necessarily belong to you, to acknowledge them. And once you inhale, you're going to bring the light of that love. And when you exhale, you let go of the things that don't belong into your system. Once again, as our bodies, our hearts are filled, are filling with the light of that love, I invite you to take a deep breath. As we say at the bottom of page 150, "Yavatcha al tesir mimenu לעולמים." Dear God, please never remove your love from us. Baruch ata Adonai, Oev Amo Israel. We're on page 152 for the Shema. Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai page 154. Shall we read in English?
Sure. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, and with all, together please, and with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to the heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand, and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God.
Now our Sidurim, page 156. אמת באמונה כל סוד וקיים עלינו, כי הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ואין סולתו, ואנחנו ישראל עמו. Page 158. I was talking to someone this week about this idea that the blessing for redemption is there with this very specific vocabulary, with a reminder of the sea of reeds, to somehow remind us that obstacles that seem to be impossible are a constant in our lives. They take different shapes and forms. In our liturgy, they look like the sea of reeds. In our lives, well, you know, in each of our lives, it looks different. But the invitation and the intention is to try to find the strength to step forward with faith. We're on page 158. כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, אילי מלכותך ואהובנך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, סהליאנו ואמרו, אוי סהליאנו ואמרו, Lai la lai, ya lai la lai lai, ya lai lai la lai, ya lai lai la lai 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 lai, ya lai la lai lai, ya lai lai la lai, ya lai lai la lai 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 lai, lai 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 מלכותך ואהובנך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים. סהליאנו ואמרו, אוי סהליאנו ואמרו, ונאמר כפת אדוני את יעקב, וגאה לו מיד חסד ממנו. Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praise are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Israel. Page 160. Grant, O God, that we lay down in peace and rise us up to a life of renewal. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom. This is our prayer for inner peace. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom Behamidenu Shomreinu lechaim. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom Behamidenu Shomreinu lechaim. Ushmor tzedkenu uboenu lechaim u'shalom me'ata ve'ad Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom Be'amidenu Shomreinu lechaim. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom Be'amidenu Shomreinu lechaim. What an interesting thing that this is happening when we are praying for internal peace and we are asking, right? You know, we are challenged all the time. Thank you for being here. And we ask to build, thank you, Josh, and thank you, Trista, to build a Sukkot Shalom, a shelter of peace that is spread over us. And sometimes it doesn't come from within us. It comes from our friends, from our community. Baruch atah Adonai Apores. Sukkot Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol amo Israel ve'al Yerushalayim. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, a shelter of peace. Is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over the holy city of Yerushalayim. As we turn our Siurim to page 164 for Tfilat Amidah, we notice on page 162 the words of B'Shambru B'nei Israel et Shabbat. We are reminded before reciting Tfilat Amidah that today is Shabbos. So in our prayer, Tfilat Amidah is the opportunity to speak your heart, to speak your mind. If we were dictated until this point, now it's you. But before we open our mouths, we say literally, Adonai Sfatai Tiftach. God, please open my mouth. Before we even ask for that, we say to ourselves, let's remember this Shabbat. Let's try to focus on different things, in things that are not necessarily what we are constantly dealing with. So with that idea, with the idea of finding what's special, what's really, really needed in your spiritual grocery list, in the things that you want to achieve, the things that you want to have, I invite you to remember that today is Shabbat, and there's an opportunity to dedicate some very special focus. We're on page 164 for Tfilat Amidah. We will sing the first verse together, and then we will remain in silence. Please rise, as Tfilat Amidah literally means the standing prayer. Yara la ira 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 Adonai. Yara la ira 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 Sfatai Tiftach. Yara la ira 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 Elai Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Yara la ira 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 Adonai. Yara la ira 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 Sfatai Tiftach. Yara la ira ira Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. מתי תפתח, ופי יגיד, ופי יגיד תהילתך. תגיבו לעולם אדוני מחיים מדינת הרב לראשי ראשי ברוח ומורי ידאגה שמחכה חיים מחזה בחיים אתה קדוש ביום אתה קידשת ג'ו משהו אילש וכל תחילת לא עושה רוצה לעיניק יש נתון לציון מודים לך שאתה עונה אלינו ולאבותינו ומותינו לדעת צורכינו ולשנה שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לב לך עם כדאונה ולרצון אמרי פיו והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי בגואלי. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you Adonai my rock and my redeemer. עושה שלום באמרומיו ויעשה שלום. עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. May the one who makes peace in the high heavens make peace for all Israel and all who inhabit the earth. And let us say At this point, we will turn our Sidurim to page 371 as we add to Tfilat Amidah in Shabbat, Misheberach, we add one more prayer for those that are dealing with illness. We think of those dealing with illness in their bodies. We think of those dealing with illness in their souls. We think of those dealing with addictions, and so of those carrying grief. If you have a name that you'd like to share in this Erev Shabbat, we invite you to do so as we go around the room. Richard Kennemer, Jack Long, Don Gringorten, Bruce Roberts, Stuart Mass, Howard Levine, Alfreda Mastman, Diane Siegel, Francine Pack, Jill Becker, Gail Frankel, Melanie Whale, Scott Van Gundy, Ed Stein, Stu Becker, Victoria Spiller, Dave Stoll, Lonnie Goldman, Richard Ravich, former member of Shir Hadash, Edna Stone, mother of Eric Stone, Alan Kaufman, Ian Ballard, friend of Alison Turner, and Janet Wolf, mother of Bonnie Wolf, now with their names in the room and in our spirit. We turn our Sidurim to page 371 for Misheberach. Misheberach wish to all of them, to all of you, to all of us, refuah shlema, a complete, a whole recovery. And let us say, once again,
Amen.
Amen.
thank you very much. It is so nice to share in singing with so wonderful and talented people. So thank you for accompanying our community in song. Good Shabbos, everyone. It's good to see all these wonderful faces. Have a distance problem with this table. If you are new to Shir Hadash, so I have an issue. It's too low. And so I need this thing to help me keep up with my notes. And you do want me to keep up with my notes. Because if I don't, we will finish talking, we will end talking about, I don't know, every week, once again, about the creation of the world, which is one of my favorite topics. Well, I don't know what's happening. All the technologies today are failing me. Here we go. So who knows what's the name of this Torah portion? No worries, I'm going to tell you anyway. It's called Vayera. Vayera means, and he will see. The word lirot means seeing. So we'll get to that in a moment. This Torah portion starts off with Abraham sitting at the entrance of his tent. But the fact that he is sitting out there symbolizes something very profound. The rabbis speak about the reason for the location of the tent, understanding the fact that Abraham and Sarah put their house in the middle of the desert for two reasons. The number one, to disconnect from cultures that were surrounding them in order to start this new project that they were working on. Now, the second reason is because it was in the desert. As we often discuss in the book of Numbers, which in Hebrew is Bamidbar, which literally means in the desert. The desert, in our tradition, legally speaking, is called Shetach Efker. Translate in a second. Nobody's land. And this idea of nobody's land represents a very different approach to ownership. Because the message that they were trying to convey, according to the Talmud, was that their tent, their home, was everybody's land. Meaning that it was open to everyone, and they were deeply committed to this lifestyle of generosity. There is a story that I heard from Rabbi Shlomo Farhi in the name of Rabbi Galina that illustrates this concept beautifully. The story is about yet another rabbi. We rabbis like to tell stories about rabbis. Apologize for that. But the Talmud is full of rabbis also. So the story is about Rabbi Abraham Yaffa and his wife. They used to run a yeshiva, a house of study at their own home. These were the days before the war, and there was great poverty. Food wasn't granted by any means. It so happened that on one Shabbat night, the children were preparing to go sleep. The children that were studying in the yeshiva would stay in their house overnight. And they were, that night, that Erev Shabbat, that evening of Shabbos, they were very hungry. They say to one of the older kids, Yenkel goes for Jacob, go get us something to eat. Yankel went into the kitchen and found some bread. They were allowed to take anything at the home of the rabbi and the rebbetzin because whatever they had was there to be shared. This was the way they lived their lives and educated their children. So Yankel came back to the others with a few slices of bread, but not only that, he found a very special treat, a little jar with honey. So he put some honey on a few slices of bread, and everyone was overjoyed with this very unusual and special treat. It was only a few days later that Yankel learned that the rebbetzin goes for the rabbi's wife, the rebbetzin was keeping that jar of honey for a special holiday meal for the rabbi and herself, and he felt terrible about it. He was heartbroken. The rabbi and the rebbetzin, who shared everything with them, decided to keep something for themselves. He learned how expensive it was to get such a special delicatessen. So he was literally heartbroken and decided to apologize to the rebbetzin. But before he was able to fulfill his decision, the war broke out and they all quickly spread out. Yankel was never able to apologize to the rebbetzin. And so the years went by and they knew very little about each other's fate. Many, many years later, Yankel was established rabbi in Eretz Israel, in Israel, when he learned that Rabbi Yaffa and the rebbetzin not only were alive, they were also coming to visit Eretz Israel, and they were organizing a gathering for the yeshiva students and raising funds to rebuild their yeshiva back in Europe. So they came to that day, to that gathering, and there was a table filled with students, now all of them adults. The rabbi was at the head of the table, the rebbetzin sitting on an armchair on the side. The rabbi taught a class, and then he said, "Now is your turn, my students, to talk and to share." The first student got up, thanked the rabbi for his wisdom, and made a commitment to support the yeshiva. Then the rabbi turned to Yankel. Yankel, who now went by Yaakov, stood up and said, "Before I say anything, I need to apologize to the rebbetzin." He was carrying that for years. And this was the moment. He says, there was one evening of Shabbos in which it was late at night and we were hungry. I went to the kitchen to get a few slices of bread, and I found a little jar of honey. Rebbetzin, I learned later on that you were keeping this jar of honey for a very special meal with the rabbi on the holiday. I am so, so sorry. I am so sorry that I took something that was yours. You are the most generous person I ever encountered and share everything with us. I hope you can find the space in your heart to forgive me, he said. And the rebbetzin, who was a very quiet woman, started yelling, "I can't believe you are saying this to me now. This is so wrong. This is terrible, outrageous." Yankel, who was a big guy, was shrinking and now sitting and shaking. And then she says, "I am so sorry. I am the one who owes you an apology. How could it be that we had a group of hungry children in our house and I didn't think about sharing that jar of honey with you? I apologize on mine and the rabbi's behalf. I hope you can forgive us. Now, with this story in the back of our minds, let's go back to the entrance of the tent, of Abraham's tent, when he's sitting. Abraham is sitting and recovering from the Brit Milah, the circumcision, that came as a part of the covenant. Torah tells us that God itself, the divine presence itself, comes to pay him a visit and to perform the mitzvah of Bikur Cholim, of visiting the sick. Abraham himself is also performing a mitzvah. The mitzvah of Lekavel Pnei HaShechina, of receiving the divine providence. However, that magic moment, in a blink, he recognizes the presence of 3 strangers coming from the desert, and without hesitation, he runs toward them and invites them to come into their tent. Rashi, the medieval commentator, explains, Gdola achnasat orchim mikabbalat pnei hashechina. Welcoming guests is a more important mitzvah than the mitzvah of recognizing the divine presence itself. When you see a real human being, that's more important. Abraham brings them into the house and says to them that he will prepare some bread. However, 2 verses later, the only thing he says is, we'll make some bread. 2 verses later, we read, and Abraham ran to the cattle and took a young and good calf and gave it to a young man, and he hastened to prepare it. Rabbi Eliezer in Baba Metzia, page 87a in the Talmud, in Babylonian Talmud, says, from here we learn that the righteous speaks very little and do a lot. What an underappreciated trait of character that is, right? What we are witnessing here is a cycle of actions. These actions are those telling us the story of who these people are. Our actions tell the story of who we are. Now, if for a moment we think about ourselves and this election week, it's interesting to reflect on our own cycle of actions. Voting, going to vote, is a mitzvah. And I hope that most of us were able to perform that mitzvah and participated in sustaining our democracy. Now, the question is, what's next in the cycle of our actions? You know, going to vote was on Tuesday, if you didn't send your ballot in advance. So what's next? I know that some of you are still working on voter engagement and will continue participating in civic engagement in general. Now, no matter if you're happy or unhappy with what the outcome of the election was, I want to suggest that the next step in the cycle of our actions is increasing kindness and performing mitzvot. And I want to explain to you why. The angels that Abraham and Sarah received came to announce to them 2 things. Number 1 was the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. And number 2, Isaac. They came to tell them that they were going to have a child. Now, it was a stretch at Sarah's age to believe that that was possible. And so she laughed. But this reaction, that this is kind of sometimes interpreted as a cynical reaction, did not characterize her actions by any means. They, Abraham and Sarah, were 100% invested in a life of generosity and loving kindness. They were 100% invested in the fulfillment of the covenant. And so the angels were only following up on God's part of the covenant and announcing its continuity through the birth of Isaac. Now, there are many circumstances in our lives and moments in our history that can tempt us to look at the covenant with cynicism. It was only yesterday that we acknowledged 84 years to the Kristallnacht, the most terrible pogrom that our people experienced in Europe. Many define the Kristallnacht as the beginning of the Shoah, the Holocaust. I, personally, grew up in a community in which several of its members had a vivid memory of that night. My own rabbi, Rabbi Hans Harf, may his memory be a blessing, was both a victim and a survivor of that night. And while we carry sometimes very painful memories and scars, they are also proof of that symbolic covenant and of our continuity. We are not here because they tried to kill us. And not even despite that. We are here because of our strong family roots. The stories of the book of Genesis are family stories, and we see ourselves as part of that family. We are here because the foundation of our tent, the foundations of our tent, are solid and strong, and because our Judaism is and should be based on actions. We are here because loving kindness is not our strategy, but rather our DNA. We are here because that promise, the covenant of Abraham and Sarah, was extended to all of us. And it gives us the privilege and the obligation to open our tent, to live our lives with generosity, and to nurture our world with loving kindness, because our world desperately needs that loving kindness. So this is the last question, and I want to invite you to think about it, how we are going to translate our thoughts in actions. What's going to be the story of our actions in the aftermath of the elections? Whatever your feelings are about it. I want to make a suggestion. I want to invite all of us in different forms of behavior to sit at the entrance of our tents. Shabbat Shalom. We'll continue our service on page 588 with Be'ashebot el levavecha, and we will open the ark. And we have a custom here to invite children that are under the age of 13 to join us on opening the ark. So if you're under the age of 13, can we ask you to be the opener of the ark? We need some please rise as we open the ark, and the children join us. Page 588. The way to return begins from within our hearts. You say, Elevavecha, Ki Adonai, Ki Adonai, Ua Elohim. And you say again, Ua Elohim. אל לבביך,
בלבביך,
כי אדוני
כי אדוני
הוא האלוהים,
הוא האלוהים,
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. We'll close now the curtain, parochet, and subsequently the ark. No, before that. Now you can close the ark gently. You may be seated. At the end of our service, we take a moment to acknowledge mourners among our community. If you are during the first 7 days of mourning, please rise and share with us the name of the person you are remembering. If you are during the first 30 days of mourning, shloshim, please rise and share with us. Thank you, Shal. Remain standing, please, so we can acknowledge you. If you are during the cycle of the first year of mourning, please rise and share with us who you are remembering and remain standing. If you have a yahrzeit this week, the anniversary of someone's passing by this time of the year in years past, please rise and share with us who you are remembering. Steve? Am I missing anyone who wants to share a name? I see some people standing, and I don't know if we are standing for the same people. Thank you. Our congregation offers condolences to Martin Lombard on the death of his sister, Charlene Kilgore. We also remember Vlasta Beshnovic, mother of Nika Alchnovic, Galina Butorina, mother of Orla Colgan, Kerem Imbalsano, mother-in-law of Ben Murhead and son of Richard and Jody Murhead and grandson of Shel Rubinstein, Lillian Berman, Robert Bruce Meyers, Abraham Carras, Scott Safadi, Norman Green, Marilyn Silverman, Leslie Achnal, Paulette Sofim, David Green, Jenny Porush, Estelle Abrams, Spencer Caney, Arthur Cherdak, Sean Leveres, Marilyn Handelman, Kay Damron, Nira Marom, Andrea Cameron, Siva Forusan, Rosella Newton, Linda Sherry, Fred De Castro, Sherry Skeahan, Larry Eisen, Harry Gross, Michael Taub, David Schwartz, Rhoda Freeman, Iliad Foner Lipsitz, Ron Walk, Adina Nir, Tamara Noten, Mimi Levy, James C. Price, Colette Kaplowitz, Rita Smith, and David Corman. We're also thinking of Alfred Green, father of Amy Stein, Natalie Green, mother of Amy Stein, Harvey Goodman, brother of Linda Rosen. We are thinking of Cindy Schenker, wife of Philip, mother of Emily and Ben. We also received a note from family that are joining us as we say Kaddish from different places in the country that wanted to be acknowledged as they are praying with you and joining you in this evening. Joseph Ollender, father of Irv Ollender. Daniel Rosenfeld, son of James and Arlena Rosenfeld. Samuel Spool, father of Alan Spool. And Rachel Friedberg, mother of Robert Friedberg and mother-in-law of Barbara Friedberg. Now, you can support our fellows by standing or sitting, joining us with your voices or your hearts for Kaddish Avelim on page 598 for Mourner's Kaddish. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חילותי, וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, באמרו אמן. יהא שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולמי עלמיה. יתברך, ישתבח, יתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי לקודשה, לעילה מן כל ברכתה בשירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירם בעלמה, באמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה, בחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, באמרו אמן. עושה שלום ויברומיו, ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, באמרו אמן. May the memories of your dear ones be always a blessing in your life. Yeh Zichram Baruch. You may be seated. We'll now invite our president for very brief announcements.
Brief, I think not. So most of the announcements, all the announcements are in your service handout. I'll just highlight a few in my effort to be brief. Tomorrow, Torah study in the chapel at 9:30, followed by Shabbat services. Join Rabbi Nico for the first Lunch and Learn for the sake of heaven, Jewish wisdom for diverse times in American society. Please register on the website. On Sunday, we have the blood drive from 9 to 1, the book group at 10 o'clock, The Choice by Maggie Anton, and then football in the sanctuary. The San Diego Chargers, typifying Judaism, wandering now in Los Angeles, but soon to be back in San Diego. As soon as I win the lottery, I'm going to buy the team and move them back. We'll play a team from this area on Sunday night. Be here. On Thursday, the 17th, the second class of Nashim, remarkable Jewish women. And then the interfaith service will be this, for the community, will be at the Los Gatos Methodist Church at 7 o'clock in the evening, and our choir and clergy will participate. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom and Baruch. Now, if you do want to join us tomorrow and you haven't registered yet, there is redemption for you. Now, if you try to do that through the website, you won't be able to do that. But you see that remarkable person, that one, yes, standing there, Shanda. You can let her know. You can reach out to Shanda, let her know, and so give us heads up, and we will organize ourselves accordingly. We would love to have you. Now, do we have any veteran in the room? Oh, you want to join me for Kiddush? Symbolic Kiddush. We acknowledge also it's Veterans Day, so we acknowledge our veterans. We give them thanks for their service. Hold the cup here, because you want to do the Kiddush together. If you don't mind, I'll show you. You can find the Kiddush on page 122. And while you find it, or once you find it, I invite you to please rise. Don't do the two things at the same time. It's difficult. Okay. Okay? So you're adventurous. The Kiddush starts with a reminder of the creation of the world, As we say, בערב ויבוקר יום השישי, ויחולו השמיים בארץ וכל צבאם, ויכל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישבות ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה, ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. And we say, sabri חבריי וחברותיי, and you say, לחיים, and you raise the cup, and we say, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי הגפן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ברצה בנו בשבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה בראשית כי הוא יום תחילה למקרא הקודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת עם כל העמים, בשבת קודשך ברב וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen.
Thank you for your service. I'm glad that you are the only one. We didn't have 2 cups or 3. Thank you very much. And as we conclude our service and you are standing, we make sure that nobody leaves this space without sharing a blessing, without receiving or giving a blessing. It is customary to share blessings around the Shabbos table, to recognize our creation, to bless our children, and if our children are not standing next to us, to think about the things that we create in this world. Here, my children. You got children also. You want to take them that somewhere. So we take a moment to acknowledge those creations, to celebrate them. And we celebrate, as a matter of fact, any creation or loving creation that we bring to the world, friendships, community. So make sure that you're not standing alone. If you recognize yourself as standing alone, make sure that you don't do that. Make sure that you have someone next to you. Adopt a family, let someone adopt you. Let's actively engage in that for one moment. As we say, may God inspire you to be like the loving fathers, loving mothers, the loving parents of Israel. ישמחם אלוהים כאפרים וכמנשה, ישמחם אלוהים כשרה רבקה רחל ולאה. יברככם אדוני באיש מלכם, may God bless you and protect you. יאר אדוני פניו אליכם ויחונקם. May God's light shines upon you and may God be gracious to you. יישא אדוני פניו אליכם. May you find within you God's presence always, and may God bless us with the determination to create a world of loving kindness and with the openness to create a tent of shalom, a tent of peace, a tent of wholeness. וישם לכם, all of us, shalom. אדוני עוש לעמיו ייתן, אדוני יברך. May God give us the strength to be builders of shalom, את עמו בשלום. שבת שלום מבורך everyone, שבת שלום.
Shabbat shalom.
Lai, 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 lai. Ya, la, lai, 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 lai. Ya, lai, lai, lai. Ya, lai, lai. Ya, la, lai, 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 lai. Ya, la, lai, 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 lai. Ya, la, lai, lai, lai. Ya, la, lai, lai. Shabbos, everyone.
Good Shabbos. Shabbat Shalom.